Oh, yeah, thank you, Jennifer. Can, Michael, can you please open the roll? Everyone sign in. And then,
Mr. Chair, you have a quorum?
okay, we have a quorum. Okay, what I'd like to do is make some administrative announcements. Senate Bill 1365 and Senate Bill 1392 will go by for the week. And I may have some others, but those two are in front of my face right now. I have a motion and a second to do that. All in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, so that's 1365 and 1392. Then I have two bills getting re-referred. Senate Bill 1393. No, are we going to keep that? Or you want that? No, Rehab wants it. Rehab wants it. Okay, Senate Bill 1393 on hemp products, licensing and labeling. That's going to be referred to Rehab at the request of the chair. So move. I have a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Okay.
Mr. Chair, there's a recorded vote.
Oh, never mind. All right, let's open the roll. Okay. Okay, we got it. All right.
Ayes 12, no 0.
Okay, that's 1393, and then also Senate Bill 1401. Okay, Senate Bill 1401 is Virginia Resource Authority, Community Development and Housing Projects. That's been re-referred to general laws. I have a motion and a second. Okay, and a second. Clerk, open the roll. That's to refer to general laws, 1392. Okay.
Ayes 13, no 0.
Okay, ayes 13, no 0. And then I know I've got two dog and cat bills out there. Michael, can you report those? Two for the domestic, what do we call it? Domestic Animals Committee? I think there's a Boy Scout and a Stanley. Okay, do you know what the numbers are?
For the patron of the bill, sir?
I just need the numbers of the bills for dog and cat. I think they're close to each. Okay, Senate Bill 1230 and 1271 are hereby referred to the Dog and Cat Subcommittee, which will meet at the leisure of Senator Marsden.
The staff remember what the usual time and day for that? Barbara, do you remember?
Companion.
What time?
And whenever you want.
9 o'clock on Thursday?
The chair.
You meet whenever you want. You're the chair.
Let's be consistent. Let's go 9 o'clock Thursday.
Okay, sounds like that's going to be 9 o'clock Thursday. So if you're here for a domestic animal bill, or as we like to colloquially call it, the Dog and Cat Committee, that's going to be 9 o'clock on Thursday. Okay, I think that has moved through the ones that we wanted to move through. And let's start with our non-committee members. And looks like Senator McPike, you're first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Senate Bill 1047 deals with the Petroleum Products and Franchise Act. Mr. Chairman, I've included basically distributor in the definition of refiner. It's maybe an inelegant way to deal with an issue. However, it's important to understand the context of what is behind the bill. And so to set the stage, Mr. Chairman, really briefly, when this franchise section was passed by Senator Saslaw in 1872, you got my point. The context of the franchise was much different. You had vertically integrated Shell, Exxon that were actually delivering, owning, et cetera, through the brands. It set out parameters to protect the local store owners, which are called dealers, from sort of overexertion. Now, that model has sort of faded away over the last 20 years, and a lot of the market is now controlled by distributors or jobbers, is what the term is referred to. What has occurred is the same sort of market forces at the same time, and so you have an entity, the jobber or distributor, that's controlling the price of fuel, and also at the same time leasing the actual location that the store is set up to sell the actual gasoline and petroleum products. The problem is essentially overexertion of market weight, where you're controlling both ends and means for these small businesses. That's why it's time to update this part of the Franchise Act to protect those small business owners from undue exertion. And for instance, in the existing Franchise Act, it requires a fair market value for a lease. Well, under the provisions right now, because it's jobbers that are controlling both the site of the small business and the fuel, they don't have to apply with this part of the Franchise Act. And so they can increase your rent without any market rate analysis, at the same time controlling the cost of your fuel. And that's an unfair business practice, and that's what's going on, Mr. Chairman. There's not agreement within the industry on this. We've had multiple conversations to arrive at an arrangement. We do have some small business owners, Mr. Chairman, that do want to testify on what's going on, but it's a part of our code that has not been updated in 20 years, and the market conditions have vastly changed since this original part of the act was passed, Mr. Chairman.
Great, thank you. I see some folks that are supporting your bill. Mr. Sheik, you want to come forward?
If anyone on Zoom would like to speak in support of this bill, please raise your hand electronically.
Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the members of the committee for working so hard for Virginians and your constituents, and also giving me the opportunity to come and speak to you. Mr. Chairman, thank you for co-parenting the bill. As the Senator mentioned, the bill was drafted in 1973, and the Franchise Act, which created a relationship between refiner and the dealer. The refiner had three businesses at that time, which was refining crude oil. The second business of the refiner was as a landlord, and the third business was supply. In 2006, when the refiner decided to sell their landlord business and their supply business to the dealers, to the distributors, which are now called supplier, distributor, wholesaler, jobber. There are four different terminologies used for them.
Right.
They continued, the distributor received the business, continued the same practices where the dealers still have to pay them rent for leasing the facility, buy the product from the supplier as well at the cost supplier want. There is no cap rate, so if the wholesale rate today is $2.70, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, they can still charge the dealers $3.70 or $4.70 if they want it, because there is no restriction. And when we ask for our distributors, and we're not talking about small distributors, 20 sites, 30 sites, who are selling gas at a wholesale price. We're talking about distributors who are continuing the practices by the refiners by setting up the gas cost for the dealer, which is called dealer tank wagon. And those distributors who charge dealer tank wagon, when we ask them for a rent, that, hey, if you're a franchisor and we are buying product from you, we cannot buy it from anybody else, can you work on our rental agreement? The answer is always, look at your lease, look at the law. The law is between a refiner and the dealer, not between the wholesalers. When the original law was written, nobody considered the refiner had three businesses and they may sell two of them. So we are requesting for this from this committee to help your constituents, because if the lease goes up, if only a few handful of individuals are given the right to charge as much as they want for the gas pricing, it impacts not only small business, but also your constituents. There was a lawsuit in DC by the Attorney General in 2020. If you have a time, take a look at it. It was against a distributor for the price gouging. And that pricing continues if we continue to give somebody a dealer tank wagon ability without giving dealers any rights or your constituents any rights. So we would really would love to have your support. Please support this bill today. Thank you so much. I'll be here as well if you have any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Sheik. And I think just to summarize, basically, historically, the word refiner included distributor or jobber, and more recently, those have become segregated.
That's correct.
But basically, we're sort of putting the definition back where it was originally intended.
That's correct.
Have I stated that correctly, Senator?
I think it's somewhat, the origins you had more vertically integrated. That's somewhat correct, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, all right.
There were always jobbers per se, but the market has shifted so greatly that the jobbers have stepped into the role. In other words,
Right.
the distributors have stepped into the role of the refiner for the purposes of this Franchise Act.
Got it. Okay. Questions either for the sponsor or for the witness? Okay. Do you have any other witnesses? And I know we got some opposition. Yes, please come forward, sir.
All right. Okay, so same concern as Mr. Sheikh.
Just state your name and locality.
Osman Naseem, and from Prince William County.
Okay?
And
Go ahead.
the same concern as the jobbers been, since the market shift from the refiners to jobbers, they are in more control towards the leases and the pricing, and there is no cap. So I think there is a need to control, to have a control over them in order to keep it more competitive and control the inflation for the consumer standpoint.
Okay. And you're a gas station owner?
Yes, I have. I'm a small business, and with a few sites of pretty much all brands: Shell, Exxon, and BP.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. All right. Any other witnesses, Senator? Okay. Opposition?
If
Mike,
anyone
come
on
forward.
Zoom would like to speak in opposition to this bill, please raise your hand electronically.
And we'll take live witnesses first. So, Mike, why don't you go ahead and speak?
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, Mike O'Connor with Virginia Petroleum Marketers and Convenience Stores. I guess what we're going to try to do here is say, who's the best representative of small business or Virginia business? First thing I can tell you is no Virginia jobber distributor is a refiner. Doesn't happen, never has, never will. What this bill does is make our members refiners for purpose of coming under law. One of the things Senator McPike has said to me, well, we do this for auto dealers. To compare a hometown distributor with GM or Chrysler or the major oil companies is completely wrong. The second thing I would state, there is Federal Petroleum Practices Marketing Act. There have been 14 cases brought in the last 14 years in Virginia under this act. They have full rights under federal law. The last time there was a piece of legislation that was preempted under PMPA, and I can give you that site, and I'll leave that with you here. Basically, why are we here for this bill? We heard from no one, and I appreciate Senator McPike working with us over the past couple weeks. We have heard none of these complaints. Zero. And we're here for three reasons. One is they want to take advantage of the law that says that if they decide to sell, or if we decide to sell a location, we have to give them right of first refusal. Number two, so we can't set up a station within 1.5 miles of their location.
Right.
What this is about transferring wealth from the petroleum distributors to the people you see here representing you today. And we're very much opposed to the bill. They have recourse in federal court. They have chosen not to have a dialogue with us. They have just chosen to take this legislation and attempt to tear up a contract that they entered into voluntarily.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to take that to be your position. You're opposed to the bill.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we've got some questions. Senator Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mike, so you mentioned something that made my ears perk up. They chose not to honor the contract they entered into.
No, I'm saying that's what they would like to do, to use this process to declare us a refiner and to say that we have to give right of first refusal if we decide to exit a location and cannot set up a station within 1.5 miles of one of their locations. That's what this is about.
So each of these individuals have a contract, and these elements were set out that they don't like or now want to change. That's my question.
I can't give you chapter and verse of every one of their contracts, but in my experience, yes, that is the case.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Any other questions from the panel? And I guess what I would ask you, Mike, and as you can see, I'm a co-patron on the bill, so I'm not going to pretend I'm totally unbiased, but don't we have similar protections for franchisee, whether it's an auto dealer? We have others where we recognize that the franchisee is kind of at the mercy of the franchisor, and that's why we have this code section built in. I mean, how is this different?
Well, I was a really poor association guy because my board chairman is over in the House and he could answer that better. I didn't know this up till today. But I think to compare, as I mentioned, a franchisee such as us, and that we should be regulated as a GM is, as a Mobil Oil is, they're vertically integrated Wall Street traded companies. We are the complete opposite of that. But that's what this bill does.
Okay, I understand. All right. Any other questions from the panel, one way or the other? Okay, anybody else on Zoom or in the audience would like to speak on this bill?
There are no speakers on Zoom, Mr. Chairman.
All right. To wrap up, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think you've heard the arguments. Here's the key. Small businesses don't have the money to sue in federal court. That's why we have franchise laws, is to provide a framework of the rules of the road. This is what's been enacted in our code. However, because the roles and responsibilities have changed in the marketplace over 20 years, the small businesses that you've just heard and in your home district are beholden to the price dictates of both the price of fuel that they have no control over, as well as rent increases that they have no control over. And you just heard them said, they're sometimes even removing right of first refusal. And that means that someone who's worked their family business for 20 years has no longer a right of first refusal to buy that business, and wiping out that family generational wealth. That's a big deal, and that's why exactly we have franchise acts in Virginia, is to protect those small businesses that don't have control over their destiny. I appreciate your time.
All right, appreciate that. Thank you, Senator. Chair will entertain a motion. Second. All right, I've got a motion and a second to report. Clerk, open the roll.
Ayes 8, no 6.
Okay, you're on your way.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. All right, next up, I have Senator DeSteff.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. We have two bills. I'll start with Senate Bill 1400, the notification bill. And, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, what this does is it allows electronically for the commissioner to put public notices out as well as in the paper, but electronically and by mail. But normally they mail out to citizens. This allows them to go to civic leagues as well. Down in Hampton Roads in Virginia Beach specifically, we have on almost every canal or waterway, we have maybe 20 or 30 affected homeowners that are like the surrounding property owners. But on the weekends, you may have 1,000 or 2,000 boaters going in and out through that way. But you have a lot of them that use those waterways to get out from their neighborhoods out to the Chesapeake Bay or to be able to go out to other activities. So what this does is when they do their notification, it provides so they don't have to mail to 50,000 people. It allows them to be able to mail it to the civic leagues and other organizations that first have to request online to be put on their system so they can get the email of that notification. It's pretty simple. It allows transparency in a lot of the permit applications, and allows them to save a little bit of money instead of mailing out to a gazillion people, to do it electronically through civic leagues that sign up for that notification.
Okay.
That's pretty much it. It's a very simple bill, 30 lines, 31 lines. So,
And this just has to do with VMRC? Or
sir, Mr. Chairman, that's correct. Just VMRC.
just VMRC notices? Okay. All right. Any questions? Senator Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Steph, is the commissioner here? Do they have a position on this?
I believe the commissioner has Randy Owen, which is the head
Randy,
of
do you have
the
a position on
shellfish.
this from the commission?
Commissioner, come forward.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, I have not made it to commissioner. Members of the committee, excuse me. The commissioner is en route. Today was the commission meeting. He's en route, but I am here to, I can answer a technical question on this. This is already in place, so we have no problem with it. We're already doing it. If this will allow anyone in this room or anyone in Virginia to subscribe to our online notices, and so we have no problem with it.
You have no problem. All right. Let me get Richard.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Senator Lewis.
Well, then my follow-up question is, what does the bill do if you're already doing it?
What does the bill do?
If you're already doing this, what does the bill do?
It qualifies that they can actually do it for civic leagues and other organizations and defines them. There was some question when we had notification on one of them. This clarifies everything, so there's no issues.
Okay. Senator Morrissey.
Senator DeStefano,
Hold on,
when I
Randy.
first read that,
Just in case.
when I first read this bill, I thought, oh, what they're doing is notifying folk electronically as opposed to previous ways that they've done it. And now, when I read it, there was never any previous provision as to how people in the vicinity would be notified. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Morrissey, that's not correct. VMRC used to send a mail, so a letter out to the individuals in the surrounding affected property owners. And what this does is gives more transparency and gets it to a broader group of individuals through civic leads. This doesn't say you can no longer do that to the surrounding property owners because that's one of the things you have to do as part of your permit. What this does is says, hey, certain civic leagues, like a good example in my area, we have Broad Bay. That's where a lot of people, a ton of people, water ski and recreate. Broad Bay is made up of about 30 different neighborhoods, and there's about another 80 neighborhoods who go from Linkhorn Bay, Crystal Lake, and the other areas through Broad Bay. So this allows the civic leagues to say, hey, if something's going on in Broad Bay, I'd be very interested in knowing about it, and they can sign up and get that information.
Okay, let's move this along. I'm not sure,
that's-
is there any opposition to this?
I think this is the rub in it.
Okay,
This
all
is
right.
the rub. Now you just notify people or civic associations if they sign up for it, but John Q. citizen that is on the river right there that would heretofore get a letter saying, we're going to do this, no longer gets that letter, correct?
No, John's still getting the letter, right?
Yeah, okay, let's make a distinction here. Are we eliminating any notice?
We're not. This is extra notice.
This is extra notice.
The existing regulation for public notice under Title 28.2, Chapter 12, requires us to notify adjacent property owners in writing. We also notify the.
Okay, all right, so we're keeping the current notice and adding to it. Senator Mason.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So in your Broad Bay example, they're not covered. Why are we doing this in the Virginia Peninsula, the cities of Hampton, Newport News, Poquoson, Williamsburg, James City, and York, when your eloquent example is about Virginia Beach?
Well, Virginia Beach is actually covered. What you're reading up there is where they moved and struck an existing code from line 30 and 31.
Okay.
They moved that up to the peninsula in 19 and 20. So that's just a rearrangement of the code, and I guess for cleanup, clarification.
Okay, so
Yeah.
this will be of statewide impact.
Correct, statewide impact.
Okay. All right, any other questions? Senator Stewart.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Senator DeStefan and maybe Randy, help me if I'm wrong about this. Randy says VMRC is already doing this if somebody requests it. And as I read this bill, what number 5 says is it says the commissioner shall ensure that public notice is provided electronically to these various groups if they request it. And so what that now means is if a civic association signs up and says they want to be notified of every project that goes on because they hate oyster floats or they hate these projects and they want to be there to protest, and they don't somehow get notice or read their email, if they go in and say, we didn't get notice from the commission, that can slow down or stop that project.
Mr. Chairman.
Is that correct?
Senator
Senator
Stewart. We already have people saying that. What this does is gives broader dissemination through the civic leagues and says, hey, so they follow the existing
Mr.
notification, but where people are coming and saying, hey, I never heard about this, this actually extends that out much, much greater through the civic leagues. So we're really not, this will solve a problem, not create a problem.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Stewart.
But Senator DeStefan, they already get notice if they want it. What your bill does is it mandates notice to these groups. And if they don't get notice or say they don't get notice, that could be a problem under the laws of Virginia to the project going forward, and they may have to start all over again. Isn't that what the bill does?
No.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Stewart, I don't think so, but I'm happy to defer over to
Yes, it does.
Randy on
Okay, all
the
right.
interpretation of this.
All right, why don't we do this? I feel like maybe I'm missing something. Is there anyone here, do you have any witnesses in favor, Senator DeStefan?
No, I've not drummed up people to support or against or
Okay.
anything on this one, but.
All right.
If anyone on Zoom would like to support this bill, please raise your hand. There are no speakers on Zoom,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Is there anyone in opposition?
If anyone on Zoom would like to oppose
Okay, I
this
see some
bill,
people coming forward. Okay, come on up. Okay, go ahead.
Good
Tell us your
afternoon. I'm
opposition.
Mike
Yes, sir.
Osterling, Executive Director of Shellfish Growers of Virginia. And our concern is that it singles out two activities that take place in the coastal waters. It does not talk about pier building. It does not talk about dredging. It talks about float aquaculture on oyster reef construction. We feel that we're being unduly separated out.
Okay, I understand. All right.
Thank you.
And you represent the oystermen or
Shellfish Growers of Virginia.
shellfish growers? Okay.
Correct, sir. Thank you.
Okay, yep. Yes, sir. Step forward.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, A.J. Erskine with Virginia Seafood Council. We have similar opposition that seems like aquaculture and oyster reefs have been singled out for use of subaqueous bottom. There are a number of other permits that would be issued for the use of subaqueous bottom. Thank you.
there are no speakers on Zoom, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to address that as well. When it's a pier, it goes to surrounding neighbors already, so you don't have any issues. But when you do oyster reefs, now you're getting close to, and I'll hit some of this in the next bill, when you do oyster reefs and oyster broadstock reefs, then you're actually coming not up against where somebody would put a dock or dredging, and for the most part, we don't have much opposition to any dredging in Lynn Haven watershed at all. That's a good thing, most people see it as. We do have a problem with oyster reefs, and we do have a problem with basically the oyster reefs that are put in where neighbors are saying, hey, I go through those channels to get back and forth to get my boat out. I go through those channels to get out and go fishing, and that's where this comes in. And this is nothing more than a notification bill. This
Okay.
says, put it out there, let people know, let's be as transparent as possible. When people sign up, the civic leagues, we want to know about it.
Okay, I think we've fully fleshed this out. Any other questions? All right. What's that? Okay. Chair will entertain a motion. There's a motion. Do I have a second? Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second to PBI. Open the roll.
Ayes 9, noes 5.
Okay, pass by.
All right, if you like that bill, you're going to love the next one.
Okay, what you got?
So, Mr. Chairman, what this bill does is
What bill are we on?
we're on Bill 1395.
Okay, go ahead.
We'll probably have similar people stand up in opposition to this one. And again, what this one says is the commissioner will not permit, no permit shall be issued by the commissioner for any oyster reef or aquaculture float in the Lynn Haven River within 300 feet of any marked or unmarked navigable channel. And line 58 and 459 says basically the same thing. Navigable channel regularly used by boaters. And the problem with this, Mr. Chairman, is where oyster reefs are being put today, individuals are saying, hey, I didn't get notification of this oyster reef. They're putting them in, and it's blocking navigable channels or channels that are being used by boaters. So now they're saying, I can't get out. If I do try to get out, I can only go out now at high tide, or I'm going to damage my prop, or I'm going to damage my outdrive. So we're trying to stop that. We've had multiple issues of this in the Lynn Haven. This is specific to the Lynn Haven. The reason for this is the Lynn Haven is heavily used for recreation. I mean, you have tens of thousands of boats that go through Broad Bay, through the Lynn Haven, out to the Chesapeake Bay all summer long. As a matter of fact, a lot of folks have just their summer houses down there, and that's why they're there. They've been recreating there, they've been water skiing, they've been tubing for 50, 70 plus years. Now they're saying, hey, you're putting an oyster reef out there, you're causing a problem to us. Now, today, That gets out in a letter to the surrounding property owners. They send it via email. Next thing you know, you've got 300 people showing up at a VMRC hearing, and that VMRC hearing's dedicated to just that one project. Every time something like this comes up, it goes all over the place. What we've had more recently is we've had some oyster reefs put in where they put unauthorized material, what some would call debris, others call material. So you have things like asphalt, glass, wire, rebar, wire mesh, large piece of concrete with it. We had public hearings on this. We actually stopped 2 or 3 of the additional reefs that way. I think I can say this, but on that one, the organizations that put in the reefs are required now to remove the reefs. So what this does is stops things like that from happening in the future, but also says if that's where the channel is that not just hundreds, but thousands of boats go back and forth on the weekends, that we're not going to put an oyster reef in there blocking the navigable waterways. And if you go back all the way to the King's Grant, you'll notice that one of the things in there is we do not obstruct or block the navigable channels. This helps continue to protect that all the way back to our original rights.
Okay, thank you for explaining. All right, do you have any witnesses in support?
I actually didn't call a bunch of people to testify on these bills. We've had so many public hearings and hundreds of people at the VMRC meetings. I didn't really want to drag them all the way up here.
Okay. Senator Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator DeStefano, let me preface my questions and comments I'm going to make later by saying I respect the fact that you represent your area and that the people in the Lynn Haven don't like oyster cages and reefs and things like that.
Mr. Chair, Senator Stewart, if I may,
but
they love oysters.
Just prefacing my question. I get the fact, the first part of this that says no permit shall be issued within 300 feet of a marked or unmarked navigational channel in the Lynn Haven. And then on state-owned bottom lands shall not obstruct any marked or unmarked navigable channel. So under your bill, could any pathway be determined a channel? If I say I use this path from here to there to get from whatever, the boat ramp to that marina, but it's not marked, it's not designated or anything, that now becomes a channel and you can't do anything with it. Isn't that accurate?
If it's a regularly used, Mr. Chairman, Senator Stewart, if I may, let me address the first part of your question. We love oysters in the Lynn Haven. We have a lot of reefs. We have a lot of baskets. We're happy with them. We don't have issues. We do have issues when they become a public safety hazard or threat. We have a problem when they obstruct navigational channels. We have channels in the Lynn Haven where we have a map that's been identified with federal channels, state channels, city and neighborhood channels because neighborhoods spend a lot of money dredging out their channels. So what this does is helps stop the conflict between the two. Right now, and I want to say it was 5, maybe 8 years ago, we put in what was called, we identified what's called our neighborhood channels. The city's put a ton of money into dredging those neighborhood channels where people pay higher real estate taxes to have their neighborhood channels dredged. The problem is now is that in some of those neighborhood channels, there's applications to put oyster reefs in them and block the neighborhood channels or the channels being used by boaters.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Follow-up question from Senator Stewart, then I'll get Senator Morrissey.
Mr. Chairman, just Senator Stepp, the question I asked was, the way your bill is drafted, couldn't almost anywhere in any river be considered a channel? If I said I use that path to go from here to there, it's now a channel because it's undefined.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, Senator Stewart, in the Lynn Haven, we have a tremendous amount of boats and we have a tremendous amount of channels. So in that specific river, the Lynn Haven River, there are navigable channels and there are, they're navigable channels. There's a lot of mud flats as well. We're not worried about the mud flats at all. We're worried about navigable channels.
Senator Stepp, I think the question from Senator Stewart, and it's a good one, is this pretty much the whole river could be considered a navigable channel?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Stewart, no, because you can't navigate in a majority of the river. It's mud flats and it's bottoms that you can't get through. There's channels that neighborhoods have dredged out, which are navigable channels, and we're trying to protect those navigable channels there.
Okay, Senator Morrissey.
Senator, I think I like this bill better than the other one. Correct me if I'm wrong, what we want to do, what your bill is trying to do, is allow those folks that have been tubing and water skiing, et cetera, to be able to continue to use those channels, many of which they created themselves, and continue to use those type of recreation without being obstructed by these oyster reefs or agricultural floats. Is that right?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Morrissey, that's very correct, but on a lot of these channels, the neighborhoods have paid to have those channels dredged.
I get that part too.
So they can get in and out.
One final question.
Yeah, go ahead,
So-
Senator Stewart, Morrissey.
Somebody's been doing this on the river, tubing with their kids for 50 years. Tell me this, can't both both the boaters and the tubers and the skiers work and use these same channels that you have afloat, or is it one or the other?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Morrissey, if there's a floating oyster cages or aquaculture cages, you truly can have one or the other because you can't get a boat through the floating cages. On the channels, since we're tidal, most of the Lynn Haven, in most of the Lynn Haven, at low tide or an extremely low tide, you've got about 2 or 3 feet of water, that's it. You put an oyster reef at 14 inches, or you put oyster cages at 14 inches, 18 inches, then you have a problem and you can't get your boat through without damaging a proper and out drive.
Okay. All right, thank you very much.
Okay, all right. Any other questions for the chair, for the witness, sponsor? All right, let me do this. Before we get to council, question for council, any opposition to this bill?
If anyone on Zoom is
have
in
the same
opposition to
option.
this
All right.
bill, please raise your hand
Come on
electronically now.
forward.
Oh, okay, switch it up.
Okay.
Mike Osterling, Executive Director, Shellfish Growers of Virginia. We are opposed to this bill for several reasons. First of all, Senator Stewart, that is exactly what we read. Anywhere that you can travel and not bottom out is navigable, period. No question, right? It's already illegal to put anything into a marked channel. VMRC ensures that. The 300-foot buffer, what are you going to do about the guys that are already there? Are you going to ask them to move everything? That becomes quite expensive, and it becomes very dangerous as well. Finally, the senator said that it's to help prevent putting these illicit materials down. This bill addresses nowhere the placing of the materials for the oyster reefs. So we do oppose the bill. Thank you very much.
Okay, all right. Yes, ma'am, come forward.
A different face.
There you go.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Kim Husky, representing Virginia Seafood Council. We also oppose the bill on all of the grounds that Mr. Osterling just described with Shellfish Growers of Virginia. Virginia Marine Resources Commission already does not allow reefs and cages in marked channels, and we need water for doing our floating cages, so unmarked channels are probably do not have enough water in them to suffice. Thank you.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
Hi, Mary Carson Stiff. Hello to Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Mary Carson Stiff, Deputy Director of Wetlands Watch, nonprofit based in Norfolk but working statewide on climate change and flood risk and wetlands conservation. This bill would effectively eliminate aquaculture in the Lynn Haven River, which is a re-emerging industry for Virginia Beach watermen. The Lynn Haven was at one point one of the most productive oyster habitats in the whole country, but has experienced environmental degradation like so many of our waterways. So the river is now experiencing a resurgence of oysters, which has been described here today, which is benefiting agriculture business, improving water quality, and offering countless other benefits. This bill would remove the ability to grow oysters within 300 feet of this marked or unmarked navigable channel. The lack of definition of the channel has been raised, and we view this as a glaring issue. We also agree with our other people who are opposing this bill that this is already a settled issue. MRC does not allow for any growing in navigable waterways. And then aside from all of this, we think that the 300 feet restriction is far too restrictive.
Okay. I think we got it.
Yes,
All
and I
right.
did want to note, excuse me, I'm so sorry.
all right.
Section F at line 58 actually seems to extend the geographic reach of this prohibition to all of Virginia. I don't know if anybody.
Okay, my staff counsel to the left had already alerted me to that, so.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Unpaid staff counsel, okay. Yes, sir.
Sir, Mr. Chair, Brent Hunsinger, Friends of the Rappahannock. We do agree, we oppose this bill due to the unmarked navigable channel lack of a definition, but also the fact that this bill could have a deleterious effect on local economies and the seafood industry, which a study that just came out in September says that $1.1 billion is contributed to the Virginia economy by Virginia seafood in 2019. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, Pat Calvert, Virginia Conservation Network. We also oppose this bill.
Okay, that's an all-star cast.
That was pretty impressive. I'm glad all of them visited my office.
Bill,
Actually, they
Bill,
didn't.
I'm going to give you the last word.
Okay.
And you might want to have a cigarette and call a pastor.
Mr. Chairman, I'll be honest with you. We have a conflict in the Lynn Haven between recreational users, boaters, and aquaculture. At some point, we'll get a resolution to it. At some time, we'll get a resolution. Clearly, this isn't the right approach, so we'll figure something out. It's just a shame that we'll have more incidents until we figure something out.
Okay.
So.
Appreciate it. All right, Chair will entertain a motion. All right, I got a motion and a second to PBI. Clerk will open the roll.
Ayes 10, noes 5.
Members of the committee, thank you very much. Have a great day.
All right, thank you. Okay, non-member members. I have, John, I know you got seniority. Jill's ahead of you, so. John, you go ahead.
Go ahead, you can go.
Seniority has privileges.
This should be outlawed. And it doesn't have to be in plastic.
Okay, that's a final sip.
And
Okay.
I'm drinking it because it's what I had available. But Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, Senate Bill 1012 attempts to basically codify Governor Northam's executive order regarding outlawing single-use plastics, at least with the federal government, plus it adds localities to do the same thing. Plastic is a worldwide problem. Ever since Dustin Hoffman's Graduate movie in the 1960s, where some guy said, plastic, invest in plastic. It's the future, but it's now become, it should be outlawed, because even at the bottom of the Pacific Ocean, miles away from anywhere, it's miles down deep in the deepest recesses of the Pacific Ocean, they're finding life forms that have plastic in them. It's an international problem, and we need to do something about it, because plastic is not biodegradable. That's the problem. And my good friends who sell Coke and Dr. Pepper and Pepsi Cola, all of which, by the way, were patented in 1885, they can use cans. They don't have to use plastic. In fact, my grandmother was raised by Dr. Dr. Charles Pepper from Rural Retreat, believe it or not, in the late 1890s. And Dr. Pepper is in the same category. Dr. Charles Pepper? He graduated from UVA Medical School in 1854, but that's another story. I'll tell you that later. But the fact is, we should look at science in the future, because it's not biodegradable. And this bill it attempts to outlaw
Okay.
single-use plastic, and it has the Department of General Services should post a public notice of the prohibited products, and localities should have the right to outlaw single-use
Okay,
plastic.
let me sort of break this into two parts. So the first part would have the state, not by executive order, but by law, no longer use single-use plastic, and I assume that would be any state agency, would include all the colleges and universities.
Yeah, beginning in July the 1st, 2014, it has a delayed.
So if you go to a UVA football game, for example, you're not going to get a straw.
Well, it has some exceptions, but,
Okay, all right.
and that's why the Department of General Services.
Or you can't get
notice.
a plastic cup.
Yeah, yeah.
Get a paper cup, okay, all right. Not even like the souvenir cup that's got the picture of your favorite player?
Well, you can do
All
it.
right, all right.
There, you. But
Okay,
do it
and then
in
the
other-
second part is allowing localities the ability to prohibit single use.
Right, right. Again, they would have to define what is a single-use plastic, and that's not hard to do. In what Governor Northrup did says, look at the Virginia Department of Environmental Quality. They would have a list of items you couldn't use.
Okay, all right, I think I understand the bill. Do you have witnesses in support?
No. There are
Okay.
people against it, I think.
Mr. Chairman, we have someone on Zoom.
Okay, go
Just
ahead.
one moment while I move them over. And Zach Huntington, once it pops up as a panelist, you may unmute and speak.
All right, well, we got a couple people live, or maybe they're opposed, I don't know.
Yeah, they're behind me, I'm sorry. Didn't see them here.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, did you want to do the live
Yeah,
people?
we'll do live first. Come forward if you're live.
Hi, I'm Ellie Beamer with Environment Virginia. We strongly support this bill. We supported the executive order. The particular plastics that are in this bill are among the most littered. They're overabundant, they're single use, they are costly and very difficult to manage. So that's why we see them in our environment so often. They cause particular harm in our environment. As the Senator said, they never break down. So they're there forever. There's really no current solutions to dealing with these particular types of plastics that we can readily adopt here in Virginia. The best way to guarantee that these are no longer in our environment is to not be using them anymore. So we support the bill, and we hope you do as well.
Thank you, okay. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, Pat Cower, Virginia Conservation Network. It's my pleasure to inform you that the souvenir cups that you speak of are reusable and not single-use cups, so you can continue to get those at your UVA games. And with that, it's our pleasure to support this bill.
Okay, great. Chris?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Ellie's got the heart of it. You know, these are a large source of litter. 99% of bags, straws, and cutlery end up in landfills, burned, or on the roads and rivers as litter. The best way to prevent this litter and this from ending up in our landfills or worse is at the source. And this bill provides a way for Virginia to lead the way on it. Would love to see your support for this bill.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, Brent Hunsinger, Friends of the Rappahannock, due to the ungodly amounts of plastic that we've been pulling out of the Rappahannock River in the watershed, we support this bill. Thank you.
Okay, and just so the audience is clear, this has to do with use of plastics by state agencies. So you're talking maybe 2% of the plastics that are out there. And
I believe it also, that gives local localities.
Now
the-
localities by ordinance.
Yes, sir.
And I also want to remind people that in 2020, we passed a 5-cent plastic bag tax, which is also by locality.
I have a question.
Senator Favola.
Okay, maybe it's for the patron or representative of the state agency. Senator Edwards, my understanding is this would take effect July 1.
2024. I believe it says 2024.
Did I not, am I not reading the latest?
I think it says, beginning July 1, 2024, no state agency shall contract for the purchase of sale or distribution of single-use plastics or single-use plastic.
So that's enough time to phase out and bring in new products?
It should, yeah. That's the idea.
A question we had up here, we have a polystyrene ban. It was supposed to go into effect 2025 and then it got pushed back, but isn't that's still on the books, correct?
That's on the books, but it got pushed back.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Chairman, we still had a speaker on Zoom. Zach, you may unmute and speak now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the committee, I'm Zach Huntington with Clean Virginia Waterways. For all the reasons that the various speakers have said, we support this bill and we hope it's the will of the committee to pass it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, folks on the other side.
If anyone on Zoom would like to speak in opposition, please raise your hand electronically.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, Chuck Naval with the Virginia Beverage Association. I'm here to speak in opposition to the part referenced in there clearly, which is bottles. So I would encourage the senator to keep that bottle. If this bill passes, it's going to be a keepsake. The industry wants to get to the same place he wants to get to, but there's a better way to do that. And that is, there is an executive order right now, Executive Order 17, which has brought all the parties to the table, and I think in a good faith effort to try to solve the problem. At least I can speak for the beverage industry. We want them all back. In fact, we have a program called All Bottles Back. And with this, we won't have any bottles to get back. So that's the bottom line from us. We would just hope that you'd see fit not to pass this bill.
Thank you. Mike, come forward.
Mr. President, members of the committee, I'm Mike Carlin on behalf of the Coalition for Consumer Choices, comprised of 9 statewide associations and 5 chambers of commerce in Virginia. The coalition promotes recycling is the answer. We've had discussion of this issue in this committee in past years, where recycling, promotion of the recycling industry really is the answer. Providing the incentives and the opportunities for these companies to come in and recycle is where we think we need to go. Banning things, not the way to go. Increases costs, lowers food safety, inconveniences individuals, businesses, and in this case, the government. And we're also, Mr. Chairman, as you raised, concerned about a breach of a deal in 2021 where there was a budget amendment passed, which is still in effect, that would delay the ban on polystyrene until 2028. So we would ask you not to support the bill. Thank you.
That deal's going through a few permutations, but go ahead,
Quick
Senator
question.
Morrissey.
Yes. Mike, you said that the banning is not the way to go, but pursue recycling. I've heard numbers that 1/2% of the items are actually recycled. Do you agree with that? And if so, wouldn't you agree that recycling is woefully unsuccessful and a failure because people just aren't doing it?
Well, I think there's some problems for sure, but one of the issues in Virginia is and which is being tackled by this administration and as a first step is to pull all the parties together. There's a disjointed nature to our recycling system now, and the incentives aren't all where they need to be. So I'll admit we have ways to go with recycling, but we need to give it a chance, and that's why we delayed the ban on polystyrene for 5 years, to give us that chance to pull this together and show that it can work in Virginia, and Virginia can be a leader in the country.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else in opposition? Come forward.
Kate Baker on behalf of Virginia Retail Federation, and we also oppose the bill.
Okay.
There are no speakers on Zoom, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, all right. I appreciate this bill, and like I said, I fought very hard for the plastic bag tax, which we finally got into position. I'm not a big fan of bans, and I have a hard time believing that replacing every plastic bottle with an aluminum can is going to be the solution. But that's just me. Anyways, having said that, I guess I'll entertain a motion.
I have a motion.
Go ahead.
The motion to come first. I just had a comment, Mr. Chair.
All right, go ahead, Senator Hanger.
As you're all aware, it was part of something we struggled with a couple years ago when we were out at the Science Museum, and we passed a bill basically authorizing advanced manufacturing, which gets into the recycling of plastics.
Right.
Plastics aren't going to go away. They're something that's very important to our economy, and we will be using plastics. I just wanted to share with the committee, because of some of the work done previously, I guess it was selected by the NCSL to chair a national task force. And I just wanted to share, I've seen a lot of good work being done by the waste management industry in recycling. If it isn't getting taken out, by the consumer and put in a separate little basket, they're taking it out of the waste stream with automated procedures. and the plastic is becoming more valuable for recycling. I'm not directly arguing against this bill. I'm just saying the way of the future is recycling, where value is being created with reusing these products. So that's just one. I just want to
Okay,
put that on
all
the
right.
table.
I have a motion.
Go ahead,
I
Senator.
move that we report the bill.
Second, and speaking to the motion.
Go ahead, Senator Morrison.
First of all, I want to thank the patron for bringing this bill. A couple of points. One of the earlier speakers, Mike, said that we want to bring all the parties together. I came into the General Assembly 15 years ago, and they're still trying to bring the parties together in this. That's number one. Number two, Mr. Chairman, with all due respect, I don't think we're going to go back to aluminum cans. We're going to go back to paper that contains soda and milk and other products. Number three, an example that I saw that worked was in Ireland, where I lived for a couple of years. They didn't ban the plastic bags. What they did is they just incentivized people to use renewable by charging 50 pence per bag. And that's an island country that eliminated overnight almost. In the year there, people decreased the use of plastic bags by 90%, because you know why? They didn't want to pay 50 pence for a plastic bag, and they all started bringing in their reusables.
Well, that was last year's bill.
But John, I think this is, you got to stick to this, okay? Because people aren't recycling, the groups aren't coming together, and for those farmers out there, we didn't mention all those plastic bags that our livestock are ingesting. And for all of those reasons, I'm going to second this bill, and I support it.
Okay,
Is
we've
there
got
a
a motion and a second.
Is there a fiscal impact? Does it have to go to finance?
Let's see if it, you know what?
Oh,
Is
yay.
there-
Okay.
No, okay.
It does not.
All right, we have a motion and a second to report the bill. Open the roll, please.
Pete's sakes.
Ayes 4, noes 10, abstentions 1.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't think it passed.
Maybe there's next year, huh?
All righty, okay. Thank you, Senator. Senator Vogel, you've been very patient. Please come forward.
Should have passed.
Hey, John,
John, you've got another bill.
you got another bill.
Okay,
come on back.
Go by for the week. It needs to work.
He'd like
Take-
that to
Okay,
go
that
back.
other bill will go by for the week.
It needs to work.
Okay, Senator Vogel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I have two bills, and I'm going to start with 1374. This is a bill that I bring to you. It came to me as the top legislative priority of the Fauquier County Board of Supervisors, and it is an issue that has plagued me for a very long time. I have a number of constituents who are super upset, and it has to do with dirt dumping. And if you are not lucky enough to get emails about this subject for people in your community who are impacted by it, then you're lucky, because there are multiple counties in the district that I represent who have an issue, because if you are able to have an ag exemption where you can say that I am accepting fill dirt onto my property, and I am complying with all of the otherwise in compliance with all of the statutory and code sections, you can accept huge amounts of fill dirt, hundreds of dump trucks a day, and if you fall within the ag exemption, you can do that. And there are a lot of people who are impacted negatively, who are adjacent landowners, who are seeking some kind of relief. And so I bring this to you as an effort to address this in as fair a way as I can think of, and it's very difficult to thread the needle in a way that is both fair to people who have legitimate ag uses, that is fair to those who want to exercise their property rights, but is also fair to people who actually exercise legitimate agricultural uses that don't involve accepting fill dirt and creating something that looks like Mount Trashmore, which is really, I think, unfair. So what I have before you is something that creates a definition for terrace And it's the same definition that's used by the USDA. It's used in the ag exemption prohibition on excavation and land disturbing activity. It would remove that ag exemption if you dump more than 5,000 cubic yards of fill in 1 year, or you raise the ground by more than 3 feet. That's what this does. So if you want to know what's 5,000 cubic yards, it's about 5,000 washing machines, if somebody brings that in a year, or if you raise the ground by more than 3 feet. I have a number of people who, I'm going to try to keep this short, but I have a few people who would like to speak to this, who can give you a little more background. I also do have some committee amendments, so perhaps it would be in order someone asked to move the amendments.
Okay, do you want to, clerk, do you want to? Okay, Jill, I just was told we only have amendments for 1376.
Oh,
We don't
sorry.
have for 1376.
Oh, sorry, okay.
So do you
Sorry,
still
never
want to
mind.
amend this, or?
No,
Okay,
not now,
So what
not
we
yet.
have- What we have in front of us is what we're voting
Sorry,
on.
yes, what you have in front of you is what you're considering.
Okay, any questions for the patron on this Mount Trashmore bill?
Okay. Where are
All
the
right.
9 people?
Okay, do we have people
You have
with an
people.
opinion?
If any participants on Zoom would like to speak in support of this bill, please raise your hand electronically.
Mr. Chairman,
sir.
Eldon James, on behalf of Fauquier County, I'm pitch hitting for our Supervisor Trumbo, who got called over to testify on a Delegate Weber bill right
Okay.
down the hall. Fauquier County has been experiencing for a number of years where excess fill material from projects to the north, more populous jurisdictions, are coming into Fauquier County and using the ag exemption, and the land is not being used for agricultural purposes. It is just a fill site. We've been trying to get at this issue. We've, through a number of actions over the past several years, we've also tried very hard to do it in a way that was satisfactory to the Farm Bureau. And I want to thank the Farm Bureau. They have tried to work with us. The county wants to thank the senator. She has worked very hard to try to address, and as she said, thread a very difficult needle. We need your help. We have neighbors that are suffering with the truck traffic and the runoff, and unfortunately, the ag exemption is not being used for ag, and that's what we're trying to address. Thank you.
Senator Stewart has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Eldon, you said it's not being used for agricultural purposes.
Correct.
But just on agriculturally zoned land?
That is correct.
What prohibits your county attorney from getting an injunction in the circuit court if that's the case?
The county has been unsuccessful. They've made several attempts to deal with the issue, and that's why we're here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Have you had any pending court cases?
There have been court cases, yes.
And I assume they were not decided your way?
And I'm not in a position to be able to give you the details.
Probably need a better attorney.
I'm sorry.
Probably need a better attorney. Okay. All right. Anyone else in favor of this bill?
There are no speakers on Zoom, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, how about the opposition?
If anyone on Zoom would like to speak in opposition, please raise your hand
Resolutely
electronically.
striding forward.
Thank you,
Martha,
Mr.
go
Chairman. Martha Moore, Virginia Farm Bureau. I appreciate the senator offering us an opportunity to see if we could figure out a solution to this. I took it to our board this morning, and every single one of these items, it impacts a farmer in another part of the state. While I understand the situation in Fauquier County, you cannot just make these changes where you're going to impact other folks. The board members from Southwest Virginia indicated that they utilize this, when they have gullies and other things, and that is a very beneficial practice. I'm certainly not an attorney, but my understanding is that the courts have ruled that this operation is an agriculture operation. I know that is still subject of debate, but unfortunately at this point in time, we cannot support something because of the impacts on other farmers across the state.
Okay, let me ask you, Martha, while you're there, and I think usually I'm going to assume you all work pretty well together. Do you think you might be able to find a
We
resolution?
work well together.
Do you think there's a chance you all might find a resolution, or should we just go ahead and?
So, Mr. Chairman, back in 2020, you all passed a resolution to ask DEQ to pull together a work group in which Farm Bureau served on that work group.
Right.
And we were not able to, in working through that work group, come to an agreement on how to thread the needle.
Okay. All right, so we're at an impasse. Yeah, Senator Hanger.
Thank you. And what I'm going to say, it may not sound like it's trying to be helpful, but I'm going to try to be helpful to Senator Vogel and the situation. I'm aware of the situation up there and the conflict that's been going on. And I really don't think that that the Assembly would in total pass this through. I'm not sure where this body's at right now, but I would think with this issue, as you suggested, if perhaps the chair could do a letter. Most of this dirt is filled dirt like coming from VDOT operations projects.
Yeah, that's probably
If
true.
you could do a letter to the Secretary of Transportation, maybe a copy of the Secretary of Agriculture, and have them try to figure out how this could be addressed to ameliorate the situation, then we just lay the bill on the table.
And I think that's fair. And I've worked.
I'm fine with that, Mr.
I
Chair.
mean, construction waste is such a huge issue, and what do we do, and how do we
Right.
deal with it? The dirt, everything else. Okay, I'll tell you what, I'll entertain a motion on that, basically to PBI with a letter.
Okay, Mr. Second.
Okay, I've got a motion and a second to PBI with a letter, otherwise PBIWL. What's that? The letter will come from, but you'll write it, I'll just sign it. Okay. All right, so we have PBI with a letter. Clerk, open the roll.
Ayes 15, no zero.
Ayes 15-0.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Mr. Chair. The
Thank
next
you.
bill I have is 1376. This bill does two things. It amends the Stormwater Management Act to allow an agreement in lieu of a plan, and this applies to construction of farm buildings. This is, in this case, this is something that is consistent with how we treat single-family homes. Currently, we have to submit a plan, but as I understand it, people actually don't really follow that rule, and I understand it's really mostly just enforced by complaint. In this case, it would be allowed for a farm building or a structure when the percentage of the impervious cover on the site, and that's including the new farm building or the structure, would not exceed 5%. The 5% threshold was based on research that at 5% or less, sensitive stream elements are protected from degradation due to stormwater runoff. So that's the first thing the bill does, and that's in the context of farm buildings. The second thing that the bill does deals with single-family homes. Currently in Virginia, registration statements are not required for coverage under the Stormwater Construction General Permit. No matter the amount of the land disturbance and no matter whether it's in or outside a common plan of development. This is actually not consistent with federal law. Federal law says it's required for activity that disturbs 5 acres or more. Trump's EPA said that Virginia was not in compliance, so I assume that if Trump's EPA said that, Biden's EPA will say the same thing. And so in this case, I think it's important that we bring ourselves into compliance so that we can be administering that permitting process properly. So that is what the bill does. I know that we have our head of DEQ and others who may want to speak to the bill. So I'll let them say a few words, and then maybe you want to take questions.
Mike, you're here. Come forward, please.
If anyone on Zoom would like to support this bill, please raise your hand electronically.
Thank you, Chairman and members of the committee and Senator Vogel. I'm Mike Rolban, Director of DEQ. This is a Secretary of Natural Resources bill, and the administration strongly supports this bill. I don't think I have to add anything to what the description is, but it's a good bill, number one. It addresses two problems. With respect to the home building one and the single-family homes, they are aware of this problem, and they know we have to fix it. So it's a small burden for them to bear, but they've known for a few years. And I'll stop talking and answer any questions.
Mr. Chair, this is actually the bill that had line amendments.
Okay.
Got it backwards.
Do we want to report these line amendments and then I guess we have them in front of us. Do we need?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt the line
What's that?
amendments.
Okay, the line amendments are online, and it looks like it's including buildings and structures as defined in 3.1-6400 and related impervious surfaces. What's the structure in 3.1-6400, like farm buildings?
Farm buildings and agritourism. So what we're trying to do is, when I first got here last year, I got lots and lots of complaints about having to prepare and the cost of preparing a stormwater management plan.
Yep.
For
Okay,
agriculture.
let's do this. Can I have a motion and a second to adopt these amendments? Can I have a motion and a second to adopt these amendments? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, so the amendments are adopted. We now have the bill in front of us is amended. Just to summarize, this has to do with small construction activities for ag-related structures like a barn, for example, or a horse stall.
Correct.
Which is of 1 acre or less. No?
No.
Did I have that wrong? 5 acres is the.
We're limiting it to 5% impervious cover of the parcel.
5% impervious coverage of the parcel. And is this still consistent with Chesapeake Bay?
That's a separate requirement.
Okay, all right. All right, so everyone understand. All right, who else is, Mike, thank you. And you take it you're good with this?
Yes.
Okay. Who else is either a proponent? Martha.
Mr. Chairman, Martha Moore, Virginia Farm Bureau. We certainly do appreciate the administration and Director Rolban with coming up with this because we think that this will streamline the process to make sure that our farmers are compliant with having these plans and not make it so expensive to make it prohibitive. So we appreciate that and we support it.
Okay. Yes, sir, come forward.
Yes, sir. Jim Riddell, representing the Virginia Cattlemen's Association, 25,000 cattle operations across the state. We support this bill.
Okay.
There are no speakers on Zoom, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All right, do we have any opposition?
If anyone on Zoom would like to oppose this bill, please raise your hand electronically.
Okay, I've got one person. Go ahead, sir.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Patrick Fanning with the Chesapeake Bay Foundation. We want to thank the patron for speaking with us about the bill. Our concern about the bill focuses on the farm structures piece. It's related to the fact that the 5% impervious aspect, that's just a little bit more than we could possibly live with. And again, this also goes to the fact that we're creating a new exemption for allowing in lieu fee for the stormwater sector, which is already behind at reaching its Chesapeake Bay goals. So for that reason, we can't support the bill.
Okay, any questions, Chesapeake Bay?
Quick question, Mr.
Go ahead,
Chairman.
Senator Favola.
I don't have this in front of me, but is the 5% hard and fast, or could it be up to?
So my understanding of the bill is it could be up to 5%.
Is equal to or greater than 1 acre and less than 5 acres, and then I have to get to the 5% part. Okay. But you're still, even though it's up to, you're still anxious
Well,
about
so
this?
so that could allow, multiple farm buildings throughout a farm up to 5%. And that doesn't account for the size of the parcel. So on a large parcel, that could be a lot of new impervious cover.
Okay, let me ask you this, and I sort of follow up on Senator Favola's question. All of these structures still have to comply with Chesapeake Bay, correct?
Correct. Yes.
All right, so this is basically just additional laws to that.
Erosion, sediment control, and stormwater management plans.
Okay, all right. All right, anybody else? Senator Stewart.
Senator Vogel, if I understand this correctly, if this were a small residence or something like that, you may actually have to hire an engineer to draft a stormwater management plan.
Definitely would.
And what this would just allow us to do is up to 5%, you could have an agreement
In lieu of that plan.
with the
That's exactly
stormwater
right.
authority instead of having to pay an engineer. So there's still going to be a plan in place. Like, I'm going to put silt fence all the way around it before I start construction, or I'm going to straw over here, something. It's just because it's such a small project, you don't have to incur the expense of an engineer, but you're still going to take steps to comply with the stormwater requirements. Is that an accurate description of what this does?
That's an accurate description, and I would also say, Mr. Chair and members of the committee, as I understand it now, there are, as you can imagine, not a lot of, well, maybe that would be too strident, but it is not necessarily always being adhered to strictly by people who are constructing buildings of a farm of a farm nature. And I think that creating this opportunity for an agreement in lieu of a plan is trying to move in that direction to incentivize people to actually follow the law. And I would hope that that is actually something that is better for the environment and is an improvement. And as I had discussions about this legislation, it was pointed out to me that a lot of this enforcement is just simply by complaint. So if someone has an issue and wants to complain about someone's farm building, then that's when it actually occurs. So I think if we had more people who were willing to participate and to comply, that's actually a good thing, and I think this makes it easier and more affordable. So with that, Mr. Chair, I would say I wouldn't like the enemy to be the perfect of the good, and I think if we can incentivize people to participate, it's a good thing.
Okay.
Perfect be the enemy of the good.
I
To
think
comply.
I.
Sorry, the enemy of the good.
The
Thank you.
perfect.
Perfect's not the
Yeah,
enemy.
thank you.
Okay, we have no enemies in this committee. Okay.
Right.
Um,
No enemies.
I think I understand the issue. Chair will entertain a motion.
Was I wrong? Did I get any of that
Okay, I have a
right?
motion and a second report. Clerk, open the roll.
Senator Lewis for Marsden.
He's got him. Dave's here. Okay, we
Ayes
got.
15, no zero.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee.
All right, I'm going to sort of do a very quick public service announcement. The Dogs and Cats Committee, otherwise known as the Domestic Animals
Companion animals.
Animals.
Or kitties and puppies. if you
Right,
have
we'll
to-
meet Thursday at 7:30 a.m. Thursday at 7:30 a.m. Second public service announcement. I like to.
I tried to get it to 9.
Okay. I like to brag on the bipartisan nature of this committee, and I'm actually leaving for a moment. I got to chair a subcommittee upstairs. I'm going to hand the gavel over to Senator Stewart. He will not have my proxy, however, because I'm going to vote against some of his bills. So I will grant a proxy elsewhere, but you're going to be good? Okay. But just appreciate you all giving him your politeness and attention. Thank you, Senator Stewart. Yep. Yep.
I'll make it. Hey, Richard, first thing, could you just announce that the companion animal subcommittee is going to be 7:30 Thursday, not 9? He just did. Oh.
All right, going down the list. I need to get over here. Okay, going down the list, Senator Marsden, you have Senate Bill 993. We don't have any non-members, right? Okay, Senator Marsden, Senate Bill 993.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill is being brought forth as a follow-up to last year's Senate Bill 31. Last year, we added a new requirement to the existing Virginia Land Conservation Foundation membership to include a member of one of Virginia's state or federally recognized tribes on the board. Turns out that this new requirement was not a simple task to accomplish with the other specific requirements laid out on the foundation's code section. To accomplish our original goal of including a tribal member on the board at all times, this bill adds one new member to the board, increasing membership from 19 to 20. The board maintains representation from each of the 11 congressional districts and adds one tribal member to be appointed by the governor. Without this amendment, the governor must wait for a vacancy to open up in a congressional district before appointing an appropriate replacement. Congressional seats run on staggering terms, so only a handful are available to fill in a given year. If one of the 11 congressional districts is devoted to a tribal member, then it will likely stay with a tribal member going forward, which further limits options. Other board requirements to the governor's gubernatorial seats include statewide congressional district representatives, specific professional experience needs, and 4-year terms with a maximum of 2 terms served. No changes are made to the appointment of the remaining 6 members of the House of Delegates and Senate. We get 2, they get 4. That's not right. But the Secretary of Natural and Historic Resources and the Secretary of Agriculture also continue to serve on the board. And I will add, Mr. Chairman, that last year, as you will remember, we made it possible for tribes to receive grants
in the conservation, from the Conservation Foundation. So this is only appropriate that they have a seat on the board to advocate for themselves, and that is the bill, and that's what it does.
Okay. Any questions for Senator Marsden? Do you have folks that would like to speak in support? Or maybe I should say, does anybody oppose it?
If any participants on Zoom would like to speak in support, please raise your hand electronically.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
I think you're in good shape,
Yeah,
Senator
I'm
Marsden.
happy to
Does
sit
anybody
down.
oppose this? Anybody oppose this bill?
If anyone on Zoom would like to oppose the bill, please raise your hand
Not,
electronically.
is there a motion?
There we go.
Second.
Motion properly seconded to report the bill. Please open the roll. Thank you, Senator
Ayes 15, no zero.
Okay, Senator Hanger, I know you've got somewhere to be, so we're going to skip to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I have one bill, Senate Bill 795, that should be fairly simple. This is a renewal of the Cattle Industry Board assessment on their members. It is due to run out, and this would extend it from July of this year until, for a 5-year period, to July 1st of 2028. And it's 50 cents. They've been doing this for a number of years now. There may be somebody here to speak to it, but I think
Self-assessment to help promote their product?
Right, self-promotion type thing for their
Any questions
industry.
of Senator Hanger on this? Is anybody opposes this? Is there a motion? Motion properly seconded to
Does this
report
have
the
to go to
bill.
finance? Done?
It does not. It does
Okay, good. All right. Let her rip.
All right, please open the roll.
Ayes 14, no zero, abstentions 1.
Okay.
You have another, Senator
Yes.
Hanger?
Senate Bill 1122, Mr. Chairman, and I'll make this short work for today because I'm going to have to ask that it go by. What it is, it's a bill dealing with Preservation Trust Fund, and I was working on this with BOF. They had some reservations about it, and I was hoping, working with Brett and others, that we're going to be able to work those out. And then I got a visit from the Attorney General's office yesterday, and they said, based on a letter from former Attorney General Cuccinelli, that my bill was unconstitutional. So I got to figure out what to do here now, maybe to work around on that.
You
So
want to take it by for the day?
I would ask you, Senate Bill 1122 to take it by for the day.
All right, all in favor of passing this by for the day, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it.
Thank you.
You still have more, or is that it?
That's it.
Okay. Senator Mason, I think you were actually next.
Mr. Chairman, Senate Bill 999 has a substitute.
Can y'all distribute the substitute, please?
Is it paper or is it just, probably
online?
just populated online?
Not yet, okay.
Oh, look at this paper.
All right, is there a motion to move the substitute?
So moved.
Second? Second. Motion properly seconded to move substitute. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it.
So, Mr. Chairman, usually I'm loath to see substitutes as a committee member and as somebody who brings them because it's generally lack of preparation. This is opposite. We actually saw Senator McDougal present a similar bill on another committee, and the format that we've used as a substitute is accepting licensure from other states. And so we tried to match it to the same format that he used in another committee that was much more broad. This is designed because there's a board and a license for the competency to operate and supervise waterworks and wastewater works. And we've had a problem with people applying for jobs in Virginia, trying to come to town, and we are not accepting their license and/or taking a period of time longer than we like to get them approved. So we matched up, and you'll see through lines 30, it speaks to what the board should do, and then 33 to about 49. It speaks to all the things they have to do: have a valid license, another state for 3 years, pass an exam equal to licensure, equal to the job that they're trying to apply for, don't have disqualifying bad things. And then, but the one addition to that is not consistent with the previous broader licensure bill is that we ask for this to be done, once it's done, to have a response down on line 49 and 50
that the license will be granted in 30 days, or there'll be some remedy or some discussion about it. That's the only change with the process adjustment we made, sir.
Okay. Are there questions of Senator Mason? Do you have anybody who'd like to speak?
Yes, sir.
If anyone on Zoom would like to speak on this bill, please raise your hand electronically now.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Chris Pomeroy on behalf of the Virginia Municipal Drinking Water Association and the Municipal Wastewater Association. We are building just beautiful wastewater plants to remove ever more nutrients from Chesapeake Bay and local waters, and we have a staffing problem. We need more operators, probably not the only industry with that problem. The bill would really put us in the flow of a lot of the good modernization efforts that are already underway at DPOR. Anything we can do to speed up that process where we've had some timing issues in terms of recruiting, pulling in out-of-state talent to fill gaps where we have that. Any improvements in that direction would be much appreciated. We support the bill.
Chris, they're still governed by DPOR after they come in, correct?
Yes, they are.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Joe Lurch with Virginia Association of Counties in support of the bill. I can just tell you I had a conversation with one of our board members over the summer on this very issue, and having this reciprocity is something that can really help in the staffing issues that they're trying to address at the local level. So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody who in opposition? Looks like you're in good shape, Senator Mason. Is there a motion?
I will move that we report.
Motion properly seconded to report the bill. Please open the roll. Did we adopt a substitute? I'm sorry, in the middle of the, okay. Adopt the substitute.
Yes. we
Okay,
did,
your bill
by
reports
voice.
unanimously.
Sorry. Proxy votes.
Yeah, I'm just looking now, Frank.
Senator Stewart. And
Suderline, thank you.
ayes 15, no 0.
I think I got the rest of the docket.
I still have one.
Oh, Senator Morris.
You have one?
I got 5.
You got 5?
Yeah. Go ahead and do
Yeah,
yours.
I'll
Go ahead and do
finish up,
yours, and then I'll switch with
I'll
you.
switch with you. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senate Bill 1149. I don't believe we have, do we have any technical amendments?
Substitute, okay. Is there a motion on the substitute? Senator Hanger seconds it. Motion properly seconded to adopt substitute. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This deals with drought evaluation and response plans for the Potomac River. This requires that the State Water Control Board recognize service areas for water utilities in the Commonwealth that use the Potomac River as a water supply source as a distinct drought evaluation region, which currently it is not. And, public drinking water provider is, the river is the public drinking water provider to 2.3 million Northern Virginians. The counties of Fairfax, Arlington, Prince William, and Loudoun, and a number of cities and towns. It provides 78% of the drinking water to Virginia, D.C., and Maryland. It provides 100% of the drinking water to D.C. and Arlington County. Significant upstream water reservoirs are the Jennings Randolph Reservoir, the Savage Reservoir, and the Little Seneca Reservoir. As a note, Fairfax Water has invested tens of millions of dollars in upstream water storage precisely to protect Northern Virginia in a drought. Per code, the State Water Control Board directs the Department of Environmental Quality to facilitate regional water planning, and drought response planning efforts. DEQ has developed a Virginia Drought Assessment and Response Plan in 2003. There are 13 drought evaluation regions based on river basins statewide. There are 4 drought indicators for determining a drought. precipitation deficits, stream flows, groundwater levels, reservoir storage. The Potomac River provides drinking water in Northern Virginia, D.C., and suburban Maryland. We're just asking that that river system there be, considered one of the regions that comes under the planning and evaluation efforts. And so that's essentially what the bill does. And I do have
Senator
Preston Bryant
Marsden,
here.
if I understand this, and perhaps I don't, you're really just asking that priority be given to drinking water in these situations based upon that? Is that right?
I believe so. Let Mr. Bryant.
Mr. Chairman, Preston Bryant, on behalf of Fairfax County Water Authority. There's a statewide drought and response plan, and the statewide plan has specific criteria and triggers to determine what a drought response should be. There's also a separate, very sophisticated drought response plan for the Potomac River. It has, because it serves not only Maryland and Virginia, but also D.C., it has separate, distinct drought triggers and response plans for it. This bill says that in the state's drought statewide plan, the Potomac plan shall be incorporated effectively by reference, and that should be incorporated into the statewide plan so that you recognize the Potomac River drought response.
Is there any opposition to this?
No, sir.
I can't.
We've worked with the regulators and others, and
got to go to finance. All right, is there a motion on the bill?
Motion, I just have a quick question.
Senator Favola.
So, Senator Marsden, I guess the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments and others would be at least aware of this plan or involved in it? Okay.
They are, yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
very good.
If anyone on Zoom would like to speak in opposition to this bill, please raise your hand electronically. There are no speakers on Zoom, Mr. Chairman.
All right, is there a motion? There's a motion properly seconded to report the bill. Please open the roll. All right.
Ayes 15, no zero.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, let's start with the easy ones. I hope you're all as nice to me as I was as chairman. Mr. Chairman, Senate Bill 897. And so I don't know how many of you all are familiar with this issue, but Delegate Hodges has worked really, really hard on this, and I told him I would carry it on the Senate side, so I can't take credit for all the work. But we have an invasive species in our part of the world, and it's very much alive in Northern Virginia as well, in the Potomac River estuaries and offshoots. It's a blue catfish. It was introduced by Game and Inland Fisheries years ago as a recreational fish. The thing is incredibly prolific. It grows rapidly, and it eats everything in its path. And I'm not exaggerating.
Snakeheads included?
Yes. I've never seen anything quite like it. I've been fishing on the Potomac River and Nominee Bay and Machota Creek all of my life, and several years ago I took a couple kids fishing after school, and we went over this bar that for years I'd caught rockfish on, and both of my rods went down. There were 10-pound blue catfish. And if you fish and you know anything about catfish, you would know how strange that is, because catfish really aren't predators. Catfish eat the sort of carrion on the bottom of the river and clean up everything. The blue cats are predators, and they chase crabs and they chase small fish and anything else that they can predate on in the river. And so the natural solution is to try to figure out a way to encourage people to eat it. And in order, it's good fish to eat, not necessarily the real big ones, but the smaller fish are excellent table fare. So what this bill does is it really incentivizes and creates a process to process these fish and get them to market. and it would be a tremendous asset to those of us that represent the wet regions of the Commonwealth, because it really is eating up everything in the rivers. I guess it's in the bay. Monty, you tell me down there. It's really proliferated in fresh and brackish water. I believe it is in the real salty water as well, but I can't say that with any authority. And so I hope that you all will support this bill. I'll try to answer any questions, and there may be others here.
First,
this
let's,
would need to go to finance.
Okay,
there is a substitute.
Have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt substitute. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Substitutes before us. So in other words, what this bill does is that if you establish a relationship, a locality establishes a relationship with an organization that wants to fish for these things, they can receive grants, loans,
Funds
whatever.
available, yes. Yes,
Okay.
and I understand there's money in the budget
Yeah.
for that.
Okay.
To create this thing.
Sounds eminently reasonable. Questions?
There may be, I don't know if there's anybody opposed
We have
to it
a
or not.
motion to report. Do we have a second? And refer to finance, excuse me. All right, we have a motion and a second to report and refer to finance. Clerk, would you open the roll?
Senator Favola for Hashmi.
Oh, I apologize.
Ayes 15, no zero.
Ayes 15, no zero. Your bill reports. One down, four to go.
Thank you,
What's your
Mr.
next
Chairman.
one?
Hope I keep doing that well.
I don't know.
Mr. Chairman, Senate Bill 899, and basically what this does is it revises the fee structure for oyster grounds. And this was essentially done at the request of the oyster industry or members thereof, and I'm not aware of anybody who's opposed to this, but it reduces the lease application fee and transfer fees for general oyster planting grounds and riparian grounds to $300 for leases of less than 10 acres, $400 for leases of 10 acres or more, but less than 100, and $500 for leases of 100 acres or more. Currently, it's $300 for leases less than 5, $500 for leases 5 to 25, and $1,000 for leases of more than 25. Bill increases the fee for transfer in the riparian grounds. It's not a groundbreaking bill, but I think it helps streamline this process, and I don't think I think they all worked together on this bill so that everybody was okay with it. Oh, no, where's VMRC? Randy, everybody's okay with this thing, I think.
Thank you, Senator Stewart. Do you have any questions from the committee?
Mr. Chairman. So
Senator Mason.
some of the issues we addressed earlier today, we had a work group 2 or 3 years ago that set all of these up. This is a logical extension of what's come from the work group and kind of a next step. And so I think everybody is supportive and on board, so thank you.
Hope so.
All right. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak in favor of the bill?
If anyone on Zoom would like to speak in favor of this bill, please raise your hand electronically.
Please come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, A.J. Erskine, Virginia Seafood Council. I want to thank Senator Stewart for bringing this important bill. It also has this is for lease transfers, and from one entity to the other. We would have a seamless process for lease transfers and reduce the regulatory burden that we have in addition to the realigning the fees. So as Senator Mason said, it's a byproduct of the work group that we had. So we're in support of the bill. Thank you.
All right. Come forward. Tell us who you are, whether you support the bill.
Mike Osterling, Executive Director, Shellfish Growers of Virginia. We support strongly this bill. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Chris Moore, Chesapeake Bay Foundation. I want to thank Senator Stewart for bringing this bill. As Senator Mason said, we were part of this work group that set this in motion, and we support the bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Any opposition to the bill? Step forward.
If anyone on Zoom would like to oppose this bill, please raise your hand electronically. There are no speakers on Zoom, Mr.
We need a
Chairman.
report and a refer to finance, I believe, on this.
Probably.
Okay. We have a motion to report and refer to finance in a second. Open the rolls.
Senator Favola. Ayes 15, no zero.
Two down. What you got
Mr.
next?
Chairman?
Yes.
Did I jump the gun on the last one and send it to finance? Did both of them have to go? Both of them.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other one, it just didn't say so on the form, but it makes sense if there's 250,000 involved. Yeah. All right, Senator Stewart, what do you got next?
Senate Bill 1074, Mr. Chairman.
10, okay, you're skipping over 1001?
Well, I'm going to save the best for last. Mr.
Oh,
Chairman.
right, there you go. I'm a quiver.
Oh, Lord. I'm just make sure I got so many bills today. Okay. Mr. Chairman, Senate Bill 1074, there are situations in which you would have to go to VMRC and DEQ both to get a permit. And what this bill does is it would eliminate the duplicity. The concern that I had was I didn't want citizens to have to figure out which agency to go to. But in fact, what happens is they file a joint permit application, and the specific agency would pick it up. And so they wouldn't have to have, they would only need the permit from one agency instead of having the duplicity of two. And it makes perfect sense because VMRC really shouldn't be dealing with issues out in Southwest Virginia on non-tidal water and not sure, and vice versa. So that is the bill. It is a very simple bill. And I have smart people here like the director who can answer questions if you have any, but that is the bill.
I believe you have a
Move the substitute.
line amendment or substitute.
Move the line amendment. Move the substitute.
Is this a substitute or an amendment?
Amendment.
What? It's
Would
an
you
amendment?
report that
Okay,
amendment?
can I have a motion on the amendment?
Could we report that amendment?
I have
Just
a
so-
motion and a second to report the amendment. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, no.
Could we just let the public know what the amendment is?
Yes, I was going to say, would the clerk please report the amendment?
Mr. Chair, it's also posted online. Mr. Chairman, we have two line amendments. The first is just to correct a spelling error. And then the second is on line 54 after 62.1. We'll insert a new sentence that says, in determining whether to issue a Virginia water protection permit, the Department of Environmental Quality shall be guided by the factors set forth in subsection A of section 28.2-1205.
Senator Stewart, could you tell us briefly what that means?
No.
Okay. Can you tell us what that means?
Good afternoon. Mike Rolvan, Director, DEQ. That line amendment was actually brought to us over the weekend by the Attorney General's office. And what it does in layman's terms is it makes sure that DEQ already does what it does, but it makes sure that when we evaluate this impact, that we're looking at the public trust doctrine, because the subaqueous lands are owned by the Commonwealth of Virginia that are under the stream. So we already do all those things that it's referring to. It's just explicitly saying it so there won't be a constitutional problem. I'm an engineer, okay?
All right.
But if you boil this down in a nutshell, right now, we have two state agencies and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers reviewing the same thing. It's the same application, and you got to get 3 permits. Okay. So what I'm trying to do is make things a little more efficient. It doesn't help DEQ's workload. It helps VMRC. They owe me a big one. And what we're going to do, instead of making them drive from Newport News area to Reston, Virginia, where they met me a couple times, or Danville, it kills a couple days of their staff time. We have offices around the state, so it's more efficient for one state government agency to do this instead of 2.
So you're from the government and you really are here to help?
We're really here to help.
Okay. There you go.
I'm retired. I'm just having fun now. It's good.
Okay.
But seriously, it's just something that I've always been bothered with, and Andy is over there. I mean, he and I have probably worked together 20, 30 years at least, getting permits, and it just doesn't make sense.
Well, great. Thank you very much. Is there anyone in the audience here to speak in favor of the bill?
If anyone on Zoom would like to speak in favor, please raise your hand electronically.
All right.
There are no speakers, Mr. Chairman.
And no one appears to be in favor in the audience. How about in opposition?
If anyone on Zoom would like to speak in opposition, please raise your hand electronically.
Okay.
There are no speakers, Mr. Chairman.
The bill is before us. We have a motion and a second to report. Would you open the roll, please?
Mr. Chair, that also needs to go to finance.
Okay.
Every
Could
bill.
you amend your motion, please? Okay, we have a second?
Second.
All right, motion to report and refer to finance and open the roll.
Ayes 15, no zero.
Ayes 15, no zero, the bill reports. Is
Thank
that
you,
your,
Mr.
you have one more?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Actually, two, but the next one is Senate Bill 1160.
Oh.
And
We got two more.
there is a substitute on this,
Second.
which I actually need
We have
to
a
see.
motion and a second to report substitute. All in
If I
favor,
can
say
see
aye.
it.
Okay, the substitute is before us, and it is being delivered.
The Reggie one, we're going to kill.
All right. Senator Stewart, could you tell us about your substitute?
Mr. Chairman, this amends the public notice requirements essentially for the Virginia Marine Resources Commission. And it, and to be completely honest with you, there have been negotiations while I've been doing other things between the Press Association and VMRC and others. And I think that at the end of the day, the compromise that's come to is you now still have to publish in the paper, but you only have to publish 1 week in advance. Nobody's correcting me. And if one of the, not to be disparaging, but one of the issues is, particularly in rural areas, you're having difficulty with these proofs coming back timely, and so meetings have to be delayed, so that there's now a provision that says if you submit it to the paper and they don't do it correctly or timely, you can still go forward with your meeting. Yes, and I think that's it. Others may want to correct me, but I believe that there's all peace in the valley now on this bill.
And,
Mr. Chair?
all right, questions? Do we have a question from the committee?
I do. Question for the patron.
Senator Morrissey.
I don't want to stop this train where the patron has had 3 consecutive bills in a row report out unanimously 15-0.
Mr. Chairman, the senator's going to get to stop the train on the next bill. Let's keep the train moving on this one.
But seriously, Richard, why are we reducing that notice from once a week for 2 consecutive weeks in a newspaper? You and I and many others all very much in favor of transparency and full disclosure. And so why are we doing that?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Morrissey, generally speaking, and others can correct me if I'm wrong, these are small projects in neighborhoods and others, piers, docks, seawalls. Generally, I don't know if they do it everywhere, but in every jurisdiction I work, they post a sign on the property giving the public notice, and you also send a letter to the adjoining property owners that you're going to do this project. And so I think notice is out there. It's also on the town hall website. And this is just a way to help these people get these things done a little quicker, to help the wheels of bureaucracy turn faster at the end of the day.
Chair,
Senator
I
Morrissey.
appreciate that. I want to keep this going, but I know that a lot of small folks in small towns, they rely on that local newspaper religiously. So I want to have an amendment, make an amendment, a motion to amend on line 20 to reinstate the words "a week for 2 consecutive weeks." That's on line 20 and 21, so we will.
Well, that was part of our compromise.
Pardon me?
That was part of our compromise.
I understand that. Richard, if I understand this correctly, the compromise was it did read, "The commission shall publish notice of the application at least once a week for 2 consecutive weeks in a newspaper of general circulation."
Correct.
Then you struck only to at least once in a newspaper of general circulation.
Correct.
Then you added the other language. I'm not changing the other language at all, but I like the idea of once a week for 2 consecutive weeks in a newspaper for the reasons that I said before. I don't know how other people agree.
Thank you, Senator Morrissey. Does that put the bill at risk in terms of the folks who were in support of it?
I don't know that it's not what we want. We're trying to shorten the process and make it a little bit easier. And I respect what Senator Morrissey's saying, because I'm a guy who believes everybody should have notice. But the people who it affects, the people that it affects, the neighbors and the people in the general vicinity are going to get a letter and see a sign. So they're going to know something's going on anyway. So I think it's less important that you have that. But y'all may feel differently. I don't know.
All right.
Chairman,
Senator Favola.
just a question. We're not removing any current public notifications. We're not making any substitutions here. We're expanding.
Lessening it.
Well,
The bill as it currently stands would be you only have to publish it 1 week instead of 2 weeks.
okay, fair
Senator
enough.
Marcy
But-
was suggesting we go back to the
right,
2
but-
weeks.
But in terms of the need to notify and who you're notifying and all that, that stays the same. It's just the time.
Correct.
Okay.
Although, in complete honesty, if the paper screws it up, not saying they're gonna, but if they do, then they get to go ahead with the meeting anyway. Whereas under current law, you can't do that.
Yeah, so that is a bit of a change.
Again, everybody around, the people that it affects know what's going on. I think that's a fair.
Mr. Chair?
I'm looking at Randy. I mean, these projects, the neighbors know that there's a project anyway.
Richard, I don't doubt that at all. There's a posting that goes up, the neighbors get a letter, but I'm still failing to see why some folks just rely on that newspaper. They may be out of town for that week. They may count on it. It's a de minimis amount of money to put it in the advertisement, and I just don't understand why we're reducing. We did it also on line 154. You reduced it to 7 days.
Okay.
It's Mr. Chairman, it is a de minimis amount of money for one project, but I think statewide, they were telling me it was several $100,000 a year. Was
Yeah.
that something in that, which is not a de minimis amount? I mean, so it saves time and a little bit of money, but you're still getting notice.
But before we get into this, we need to adopt a substitute. Can we have a motion on that?
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the substitute is before us. And would the staff report an interpretation here that was in question?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Stewart, I just wanted to note that part of the new language says that if the commission submits that correct or timely notice, the newspaper makes a mistake, the commission still has been deemed to meet the notice, but only if that newspaper then corrects the mistake the next time. So then the language goes on to say, so long as the notice is published in the next available edition of the newspaper.
Okay. Is that, we good? Yeah. Senator Morrissey, do you have, at this point, did you want to make a motion?
I did. I made the motion. It's in 2 different areas, Matt, three different locations, and staff can correct it, but it simply requires that the notice be published in the newspaper for 2 consecutive weeks. And the first correction would be on line 154, and then there's well, you said there's 3 locations. I don't know what the flavor of the community, of the committee is, but that's my motion, and.
Do we have a second?
Second, I'll second that.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second to adopt the Senator Morrissey's amendment.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator
speaking of
Mason,
the
comment?
amendment, So I see what the gentleman is doing here, but trying to make sure you get proper notice. It's not so much the money that we're talking about here. It is the process of getting it in the newspaper. So these are projects that we're trying to notice. And it's not just the Farmville Herald back in my hometown. It's the Daily Press and the Virginia Pilot, who now you are working with Chicago in order to get this notification in. And so the projects are being delayed because they're just not getting the proper response with the development or change of the newspaper organization. So I think that's more the effort than the money. or the lack of notification, and maybe the newspapers probably don't like my interpretation of that right there, and so my apologies. But maybe she can speak to the compromise and why this may undo it.
Mr. Chair.
Senator Morrissey.
I appreciate the comments from my colleague, but it is getting to the newspaper, whatever circuitous route, it's getting there at least 1 week before. My amendment says it has to be there for 2 weeks. So I understand what Senator Mason is saying, that because of journals being bought up, it may be hard to get it in there, but we're not eliminating getting the notice in the newspaper. This bill, as it currently exists, only requires that 1 week notice. And I think I've beat this horse enough.
We have a motion and a second. Senator Lewis.
Can I ask a question? Is that
Yes,
all
you
right?
may.
Senator Stewart, so isn't this, the people who really care about these projects, which are great projects by and large, important projects, are the neighboring landowners?
Right.
And they're still getting the traditional notice, isn't that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
So-
And typically, the land is posted too.
Yeah.
So everybody knows what's going on.
And I would just add, before we vote on this, that I hate to do something that undoes a carefully crafted and compromised bill. You never know who might be upset by the change, and I would just make that comment. So all in favor of the Senator Morrissey's amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No.
Ayes win.
Oh, Lord.
There you go. Hey, it works. So the motion is defeated. The bill, the substitute stays as it is.
Move to report.
Yeah, we have a motion and a second to report. Okay, open the roll.
My apologies. I accidentally hit the close button.
And the streak continues.
Ayes 15, no 0.
Ayes 15, no 0. 4-0, Senator Stewart. And now I guess we're at Senate Bill.
I'm afraid my train's about to run off its tracks. But I'm going to do it anyway because I'm a man of principle, and this is an issue of principle to me.
Move to PBI, Mr. Chairman. Oh, I'm sorry.
It is.
Oh,
It
Lord
is.
have mercy.
Tell us
Okay.
about Senate Bill 1001.
1001.
And why it is a great idea.
Mr. Chairman, that would get us out of Reggie. And let me tell you why. So I have very consistently opposed this, and despite the fact that we went into it, I've consistently brought a bill to take us out of it. Because I think it's very unfair for the ratepayers to pay a tax that is merely an arbitrary inflation of their electric bill, the cost of electricity, when there's no conservation benefit for it. And I don't know, and there is no conservation benefit for it, and others will come up here and say that there is, but there's a cap. There's an amount of credits that we have. It's a cap and trade program. We can sell all the electricity we want under it. And at the minute that your constituents want more electricity and you tell them no because the cap is set, you're not coming back. You're not going to do that. You're going to raise the cap. So it doesn't accomplish any conservation benefit. What it is it's a tax to give money to folks who live in areas that are under or becoming underwater. And I get that and I appreciate that and I know that we need to help those folks. But I think it's unfair to charge the ratepayers to do that, arbitrarily increasing the cost of electricity. If you've looked at your bill lately, there's a Reggie rack or rider, whatever you want to call it. There is a Virginia Clean Economy Act rack or rider, whatever you want to call it. There's that PIP rack, and there's the coal ash rack, which I supported and I was a strong advocate for, although we could have done it for 1/100th of the cost if we didn't require, certain products be made with them and not others. In this time of inflation, difficulty, I just think it's unfair. And if we want to give money out of the budget to help these folks, and I think we should help them. I'm not saying we shouldn't, but I don't see why we're charging people through their electricity bill. And so that's why I bring the bill.
Well, Senator Stewart, isn't preserving dry land conservation? You say it has no
Preserving
conservation value.
conservation. Well, I know, Mr. Chairman, I know no way of holding water back if it wants to come. You can build up and you can do all kinds of things, but, the issue we have in Hampton Roads, as much as anything, is land subsidence, because our aquifer is being depleted at an alarming rate, the Potomac Aquifer. We already have saltwater infiltration in Virginia Beach and coming up through Hampton Roads, and it's almost at the northern neck. So because we're withdrawing that aquifer so fast, you have as much subsidence as anything else. And it's a real issue. My issue is not let's not help these folks. My issue is don't tax the ratepayers arbitrarily through a cap and trade program scheme to give the money to them. Let's find a way to help them, but don't tax the ratepayers for them.
Well, I think we do that in any number of circumstances where we tax folks and it goes to other folks and, but at any rate.
But I think it's wrong.
Yeah.
That's why I brought the bill.
Questions from the committee?
He got a motion.
I think this is the appropriate time. I don't see any other questions.
There may be people who want to speak against it.
Yeah. Yeah. Those here in favor of the bill, please step forward.
If anyone on Zoom would like to speak in favor of the bill, please raise your hand electronically. There are no hands on Zoom.
Okay. Anyone here speak in opposition to the bill?
If anyone would like to speak in opposition to the bill on Zoom, please raise your hand electronically now.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Nate Benferrado, Southern Environmental Law Center. I know we're at the end of the agenda, so I'll be very brief. RGGI is working great for Virginia. Without RGGI, from 2010 to 2020, our emissions did not decline. Our power plant emissions were, quote, fairly constant with no discernible trend. That's from the governor's own Executive Order 9 report. With RGGI, we've been in it now 2 years. With RGGI, we're already seeing significant reductions in our power plant emissions. 12.8% in the first year, that's 2021. Through the first 3 quarters of 2022, we've seen another 7% decline. We're still waiting for complete data. RGGI is doing exactly what it was supposed to do. It's reducing air pollution, improving air quality, and that's after a decade of failure by our power plant owners to do so without this proven market-based mechanism in place. I also note that it is helping protect ratepayers from fossil fuel costs moving forward. Dominion recently had to increase the fuel factor rider, so that's about, on an average typical bill, that's about $35 a month now. They had to increase it by $15 a month over a 3-year period to cover a 1-year shortfall of $1 billion for fossil fuel costs. So RGGI is a tool that will slowly get us off of these fossil fuels over time. So it actually is going to help ratepayers over time. And then I'll just mention, I know other people will talk, it's bringing in this critical funding that is helping people right now lower their energy bills, improve their indoor air quality, create local jobs, and helping localities do resiliency planning and resiliency projects that really were never possible before. So RGGI is working great for Virginia and asks that you oppose this bill.
Oh, okay, very good recitation of the facts. How about just everyone stepping forward, unless you have a significantly additional fact, if you could just tell us who you are and that you support the bill.
Yes, I'll be brief. My name is Chelsea Harnish. I'm with the Virginia Energy Efficiency Council, and I just wanted to talk about the energy efficiency benefits. They actually don't get a lot of headlines. There's a lot with the flooding and resiliency piece, but half of the RGGI funds, which is about $250 million to date, has gone to energy efficient housing for both new and existing homes. For existing homes, the 15 nonprofit weatherization providers that provide services across the entire Commonwealth have been able to make homes safer, healthier, and more comfortable. For the new housing, up to $2 million is provided to developers of affordable housing to build more energy efficient housing. And to date, these new energy efficient housing projects have been funded from Wytheville to Fairfax to Harrisonburg to Virginia Beach and many localities in between. Clearly, these dollars are effective and are being spent across the Commonwealth. Thank you.
Okay. Chris?
Senator Marsden, members of the committee. Only two additional facts I want to share with you all today, and that is that in Senate District 37 and in Senate District 31, both of those districts received about $15 million and $750,000 in community flood preparedness funds. That's money that's going to help your communities get prepared to handle flooding on the front end, providing that ounce of prevention rather than the pound of cure once a disaster has happened. Thank you for your support of this bill, and we encourage MB support as well.
Blair?
Climate Cabinet action, we oppose, thank you.
Kim Jermaine with Advanced Energy United, we also oppose.
Members of the committee, Peter Anderson with Appalachian Voices, and we oppose the bill.
Hi, Leah Jones from Virginia Interfaith Power and Light. We also oppose this bill. Thank you.
Senator Marsden and Senators Meredith Haynes, Virginia Grassroots Coalition, and we oppose this bill. Thank you.
Okay. Hey, Peggy.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Peggy Sander for the Chesapeake Bay Foundation, we oppose this bill.
Hey, Josh.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Connor Kish for the Sierra Club, and we oppose this bill.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, Mary Carson Stiff, Wetlands Watch, and we oppose this bill.
Brent Hunsinger, Friends of the Rappahannock, and we oppose this bill. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, we have a couple speakers on Zoom.
Okay, if they could just tell us their name and whether they oppose or support the bill.
Sure. Karen, you may unmute and speak now, and Vic Nichols, you're going to go next.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Senator Marsden and members of the committee. My name is Karen Campbell, and I'm with the Virginia State Conference NAACP, and we oppose this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Vic Nichols, and believe it or not, Democrats for a 59 to 36% are against this, 91% of Republicans, and 73% say no to it. So obviously the majority of the people, the taxpayers who are paying for this, do not want it. Thank you.
Thank you, Vic. And Senator Lewis, I believe you wanted to speak to the bill.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if I can. So, you know, Richard, I certainly don't understand, but I respect your opposition to our participation in the regional greenhouse gas. And, you know, everybody always says in a disparaging way that it's a cap and trade program. Well, a cap and trade program is a free market approach to solving a societal problem. And that's what we're doing with RGGI and with carbon emissions. It is clearly working here. And the lady who spoke about the energy efficiency piece, that's the unheralded piece of the whole thing. And what we've been doing, they gave me figures on the Eastern Shore just in the couple of years we've been in RGGI. So for 24 homes have been efficiently weatherized for $260,000 and one shelter with 10 units for $63,000. So have been weatherized. That's doing great things, not only for the people, the individuals, the quality of life, but also for energy efficiency writ large across the Commonwealth. There are 10 other states now, I think, in RGGI. Their economies are humming along. In many respects, they've got better figures than we do. The women are all strong. The men are good looking. There's nothing going wrong in these states. And as was pointed out today, we have actually seen the thing work. We've seen emissions go down. The last figure I got from Dominion was it's a whopping $1.63 a month on somebody's bill. And I think if you look at the polling and if you look at other things, I know what Ms. Nichols said, but I think most people are willing to absorb that huge cost on a monthly basis if it's doing a big societal good. And I think clearly it is. And I'll give you a perfect example. You look at what Virginia Beach did, 2 years ago? They voted on like a $500 million bond issue, which essentially is going to raise the real estate taxes for everybody in Virginia Beach because of their concern about resiliency issues. And I just think it's working, and I think the opposition is misplaced. And for that reason, I would move to pass this by indefinitely.
We have a motion and a second to pass the bill by indefinitely. Senator, give you a last word.
You know what? Reggie and time changes, that's all I got to say.
Yeah, it is, as long as Reggie is on daylight savings time.
It
we're
brings
good.
out the people, doesn't it, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, it does. Thank you so much. All right, we have a motion and a second to pass the bill by indefinitely. Would you open the roll, please?
Ayes 8, no 6, abstentions 1.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman,
Ayes
members of
8,
the committee.
nay 6, abstention 1. The bill is PBI'd. You got a lot of green up there. That's good. So, at any rate, thank you all very much. I think, is that the last bill that we have? All right, with that, the committee will rise. Thank you, staff.